Welcome to your own deep dive into some JFK research.
Sure.
You shared the Third Decade Journal with us,
Right.
specifically Volume 4, Issue 6 from September 1988.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about this issue is that it includes like a full index
Yeah,
covering the first 4 years of the journal.
it does.
So that's a lot of material challenging the official narrative.
It's a roadmap to all the alternative theories and kind of hidden connections
Right.
that the mainstream media often overlooks. And this journal was really dedicated to digging deeper,
Yeah.
And this index is really a testament to just the sheer volume of research that they compiled.
And just glancing through it, some themes kind of jump out right away.
Yeah.
We see multiple entries related to like potential Oswald impersonators.
Right.
Mysterious deaths connected to the assassination, even hints of evidence tampering and forgeries.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like overwhelming.
It's fascinating because these aren't just wild speculations.
Right.
The Third Decade was known for its rigorous approach, meticulously analyzing evidence and presenting alternative interpretations.
Yeah.
They were trying to piece together this puzzle that for many people still feels incomplete.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack this a bit. This idea of an Oswald impersonator
Right.
is definitely intriguing. What specific articles from the index kind of caught your eye?
Well, there's one titled The Second Oswald in Custody. It examines evidence suggesting that the man arrested on November 22nd at the Texas Theater
Right.
might not have been the real Lee Harvey Oswald. And then there's Dead Suspects,
Okay.
which is a series of articles that investigates individuals who died under mysterious circumstances,
Yeah.
some of whom are potentially linked to impersonators.
Wait, so there could have been a double running around?
Yeah.
That's like straight out of a spy thriller?
It is.
It makes you wonder, if Oswald wasn't always who he appeared to be,
Right.
how does that change our understanding of the entire event?
Right, and that's the question that the Third Decade was really grappling with.
Well,
If there was a more extensive plot at play. Yeah.
who were these individuals connected to the impersonation? What roles did they play?
Yeah.
It's a tangled web for sure.
And this idea of a potential conspiracy kind of deepens when we look at the number of suspicious deaths
Sure.
connected to the assassination.
Of course.
The index points to articles like Hidden Exposure, which delves into the CIA's handling of the Zapruder film,
Right.
and Loose Ends in the death of George de Mohrenschildt.
Yeah, de Mohrenschildt's death is particularly intriguing.
Yeah,
He was a close friend of the Oswalds,
right.
and he died just days before he was scheduled to testify before Congress.
Oh, wow.
Was it truly a suicide, as the official reports claim, or was he silenced to protect something or someone?
It's hard to ignore those what-ifs, right? Like, what information
Right.
might these individuals have possessed?
Yeah.
That made them targets, and if there was a cover-up,
Yeah.
how far did it reach?
Exactly.
It's all very unsettling.
And the Third Decade doesn't shy away from those difficult questions.
Right. They delve into the possibility of a cover-up, examining the evidence, highlighting discrepancies,
Yeah.
offering alternative interpretations. They were determined to shed light on the darker corners of this event.
And it's not just about suspicious deaths. The index also points to articles that directly question
Right.
the integrity of the evidence itself. We see titles like The Paper Bag.
Oh, yeah.
These are a few of my favorite forgeries. And Staging the Deck against Oswald.
Yeah.
It's as if they're suggesting that the entire crime scene was manipulated.
The paper bag is a really interesting one. It challenges the authenticity of the paper bag, supposedly used by Oswald,
Right.
to carry the rifle into the Texas school book depository.
Right.
And they point to inconsistencies in witness testimonies.
Right.
They analyze the bag's fibers,
Okay.
and they argue that it might have been planted at the scene.
Hold on. They're saying this seemingly crucial piece of evidence
Right,
linking Oswald to the crime
right.
might not even be real if that's true. It raises a whole new level of questions about the investigation.
Yeah.
It does.
Someone went to a lot of trouble to frame Oswald, but why?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these are a few of my favorite forgeries.
Mm.
Digs even deeper, suggesting that some documents attributed to Oswald,
Mm.
like passport applications and financial records, might have been forged.
Oh, wow.
It paints a picture of a very deliberate attempt to control the narrative.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion, and each layer reveals something more disturbing.
It is.
So we've got this potential double running around a string of suspicious deaths.
Right.
And now evidence that might not be as solid as we thought. It's getting hard to keep track of all the twists and turns.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, I know. But
Yeah.
the third decade didn't just focus on the physical evidence
Right.
and mysterious figures.
Right.
They also dedicated a significant amount of research to key individuals like Jack Ruby and Marina Oswald, trying to understand their motivations and roles in this complex web.
Right. Their stories are so intertwined with the assassination, yet they remain enigmatic figures.
They do. What kinds of articles about them did the index highlight?
Well, for Jack Ruby, the Dallas nightclub owner who shot Lee Harvey Oswald live on national television.
Right.
There's You Don't Know Me, But You Will, The World of Jack Ruby, and Castro and Jack Ruby.
Okay.
These articles explore his character, his shady connections, and possible motives for silencing Oswald. Was he acting on his own, or was he part of something bigger?
It's wild to think about. Rudy always seemed like such a wild card. Did the journal uncover anything about his ties to organized crime?
They did.
Or his potential connections to anti-Castro Cuban groups that would certainly add fuel to the conspiracy theories?
They did. They painted a picture of a man deeply embedded in the Dallas underworld.
Yeah.
With connections that could have easily led him to become a pawn in a much larger game.
Right.
And then, of course, there's Marina Oswald. Her story is equally compelling.
She was a key witness for the Warren Commission, right? Her testimony about Oswald's actions and motivations was crucial to building their case.
It was, but the third decade published articles like Marina's headquarters statement. The distortion began early.
Okay.
And the wedding ring story. A study in manipulation.
Okay.
These articles really dissect her statements.
Yeah.
Highlighting inconsistencies and potential manipulations that raise doubts about her reliability as a witness.
You mentioned the wedding ring story earlier.
I did.
What's so significant about that detail? It seems pretty minor in the grand scheme of things.
It might seem minor, but that's precisely why it's so intriguing.
Right.
The fact that there are multiple conflicting accounts of such a seemingly insignificant event.
Right.
Whether or not Oswald left his wedding ring at home that morning makes you wonder what else might have been misrepresented or omitted from her testimony. Was she pressured, coached, or even threatened to shape her story?
It's a chilling thought if we can't fully trust Marina's testimony.
Right.
How does that affect our understanding of Oswald himself? Was he truly acting alone, or was he part of a larger conspiracy?
Right.
It feels like every piece of this puzzle just raises more questions.
And that's the legacy of the third decade.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily provide all the answers, but they raised the right questions, forcing us to confront the possibility that the truth about the JFK assassination might be far more complex and disturbing than we ever imagined.
Well, this has certainly been a whirlwind of information.
It has.
We've barely scratched the surface of this index, and I already feel like my head is spinning.
I bet.
Before we dive deeper into the specific evidence and arguments presented in these articles, let's take a moment to let all of this sink in. We'll be back in a flash.
Sounds good. Yeah, it really is a lot. And we've only just dipped our toes into this whole rabbit hole.
Right. You're telling me. So let's go back to those Oswald impersonator articles.
You sure?
I'm still stuck on the second Oswald in custody. It's just such a mind-blowing concept.
It is.
What kind of evidence did they present to support that claim?
Well, they highlighted a number of discrepancies in witness descriptions of Oswald before and after the arrest. For example, some witnesses who claimed to have seen Oswald at the Tippit murder scene described a man who was heavier and had different facial features than the man apprehended at the Texas Theater.
Ah, so it's like a classic case of mistaken identity, but on a much grander scale, with implications that could rewrite history.
Exactly. And it's not just physical descriptions. The article also points to inconsistencies in Oswald's behavior while in custody. He seemed oddly calm and even jovial at times, which didn't quite match the profile of a man accused of assassinating the president.
Right. It's almost as if he knew he was going to get arrested and was ready for it. Like he was playing a part in some larger scheme.
That's one interpretation.
Right.
And it's an interpretation that gains more traction when you consider the information presented in Dead Suspects. That series of articles investigates individuals who died under mysterious circumstances. Some of whom were potentially connected to Oswald impersonators.
That piques my curiosity. Give me an example. Who are we talking about here?
One case that stands out is David Ferry. He was a former pilot with a history of anti-Castro activities. Some researchers believe that Ferry might have been involved in a plot to frame Oswald. And that his death ruled a suicide might have been a cover-up.
Hold on. David Ferrie, wasn't he involved in some pretty shady stuff?
Right.
Even before the assassination?
Right.
And they're saying his death was a suicide that seems awfully convenient.
It does.
For anyone who wanted to keep his secrets buried.
It does, doesn't it? And if Ferrie was connected to an Oswald impersonator, what does that tell us?
Yeah.
About the assassination itself?
Right. It implies a level of planning and coordination that goes far beyond a lone gunman scenario.
Exactly.
That suggests a network, maybe with ties to intelligence agencies or anti-Castro groups.
Right.
Who had the resources and motive to orchestrate such a complex operation?
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about evidence tampering.
Okay.
The articles, the paper bag, these are a few of my favorite forgeries. And staging the deck against Oswald raised serious doubts about the integrity of the official investigation.
You mentioned the paper bag earlier.
I did.
It's the one that challenges the authenticity of the bag supposedly used by Oswald to carry the rifle, right?
Right. They didn't just question the bag's existence. They actually analyzed the fibers of the bag found at the scene and compared them to bags Oswald was known to use.
Okay.
And guess what? The fibers didn't match. Wow. So are we looking at a planted piece of evidence? It certainly seems that way.
Oh, wow. If that's true, someone went to great lengths to make sure Oswald looked guilty.
They did. And it goes beyond just the bag. The article, these are a few of my favorite forgeries, goes even deeper, suggesting that some of the documents attributed to Oswald, including passport applications and financial records, might have been forged.
Oh, wow.
They present a compelling case that someone was deliberately manipulating the paper trail to point the finger at Oswald.
It's starting to feel like every piece of evidence we thought was solid is being called into question.
It is.
Like the whole foundation of the official story is crumbling before our eyes.
And staging the deck against Oswald focuses on the peculiar rearrangement of boxes in the sixth-floor sniper's nest after the assassination.
I remember seeing photos of that. It looked like someone was trying to recreate a specific scene.
Yes.
But it always felt off, like it was staged.
That's exactly the argument the third decade makes. They claim that the arrangement of those boxes doesn't match up with eyewitness accounts or the bullet trajectory.
Yeah.
If they're right, then someone was definitely trying to manipulate the crime scene to fit a predetermined narrative.
It's mind-boggling to think that evidence could be tampered with so blatantly.
It is.
What were they trying to hide? And how much of the official narrative can we truly trust?
That's the million-dollar question. The third decade doesn't claim to have all the answers.
Right.
But they do encourage us to think critically and consider the possibility that what we've been told might not be the whole story.
Let's take a step back for a second if we take all this information at face value.
Okay.
A potential double suspicious deaths, tampered evidence.
Right.
It paints a very different picture of the JFK assassination than what we've been led to believe.
It does, and it opens up a whole new set of questions and possibilities.
Speaking of possibilities, let's shift our focus to the two figures who remain shrouded in mystery.
Okay.
Jack Ruby and Marina Oswald.
Sure.
What did the third decade uncover about their roles in this whole affair?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try to, unravel the mysteries surrounding these two.
Yeah.
Jack Ruby and Marina Oswald, it feels like they hold so many, missing pieces.
Absolutely. And the third decade really dug deep into their stories.
Yeah.
Let's start with Jack Ruby, the Dallas nightclub owner who fatally shot Lee Harvey Oswald just days after the assassination.
It was such a shocking moment, broadcast live on national television.
Right.
It felt like the whole world kind of watched in disbelief, as the case against Oswald was seemingly closed forever.
It did, and the official narrative portrayed Ruby as this grief-stricken citizen who simply snapped and decided to take justice into his own hands.
Yeah.
But the third decade painted a far more complex and unsettling picture.
So what did they uncover about Ruby?
Well, they explored his ties to organized crime figures and his history of shady dealings, presenting him as a man entangled in the Dallas underworld.
Okay.
They even suggested he might have had connections to anti-Castro Cuban groups, raising the possibility that he was acting on someone else's orders when he killed Oswald.
Wow, that's a huge departure from the lone wolf narrative.
Right.
Are they suggesting that Ruby was a pawn in a larger conspiracy silencing Oswald?
Potentially.
To prevent him from revealing something explosive?
That's the implication. And it's a chilling one. If Ruby was indeed acting on behalf of someone else, who were they?
Right.
And what were they so desperate to keep hidden?
Yeah, it's enough to make your head spin. And then there's Marina Oswald.
Yeah.
Right. A woman thrust into the spotlight through no fault of her own.
Of course.
Her testimony before the Warren Commission played such a crucial role in shaping the official narrative.
Absolutely. She was a key witness.
Yeah.
And her accounts of Oswald's actions and motivations carried significant weight.
But as we touched on earlier, the third decade raised some serious doubts about the reliability of her testimony.
They did.
They pointed out inconsistencies and potential manipulations in her statements.
Yes.
Particularly surrounding the story of Oswald leaving his wedding ring at home on the morning of the assassination.
Right.
Why would such a seemingly minor detail be so heavily scrutinized?
Because it highlights a pattern of conflicting accounts and potential coaching if Marina's story about something as trivial as the wedding ring can't be trusted. What else might have been misrepresented or omitted? Was she pressured to conform to a predetermined narrative?
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure, but it certainly casts a shadow of doubt.
It does.
Over her entire testimony.
Yeah.
And if we can't fully rely on Marina's account,
right,
what does that say about our understanding of Oswald's motives? Was he truly acting alone, or was he part of a larger, more sinister plot?
That's the question that lingers, isn't it? The third decade doesn't offer any definitive answers.
Right.
But they present a compelling case for continued investigation and critical analysis.
Yeah.
They challenge us to question what we think we know and to consider alternative explanations.
This deep dive into the third decade has been a real eye-opener.
It has.
It's shown us just how much we may not know about one of the most pivotal events in American history.
It has, and it reminds us that the search for truth is often a long and winding road.
Right.
But it's a journey worth taking even if it leads us into uncomfortable and uncertain territory.
Well said. And for you, our listener, we encourage you to continue exploring, this fascinating subject.
Yes.
The articles we've discussed today are just a starting point. The third decade is a treasure trove of research, and there are countless other books and resources out there just waiting to be discovered. So keep questioning.
Keep digging,
and never stop searching for the truth. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive